friends. Welcome to Flosstube and Variety Show number 164. Today is August 8th, 2025, and I'm Emily Williams in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Thanks for joining me. Those of you who are returning viewers know that I didn't record one last week because I was on vacation in Canada visiting our friend Anne, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that trip later. But anyway, today is Flosstube. I didn't do one last week, and here I am back. Blah, blah, babble, babble. Flosstube means cross stitch. Variety show means something else. Cross stitch. So last time I showed you that I had started this. I think I had just started it. This is a Quaker pattern book with my needle, Ellen Chester, the designer. Ellen is part of the Queen City Sampler Guild. And this is more progress. I think I had gotten part of this. I don't know what I had done, but I know that I did work on it, so you have to look at it. This is 56 count Albarium, and this is Soie surfine, blue color. I like it. Under the Roof of Blue Ionian Weather. This is my current primary full coverage piece. Some of you who've watched a while remember that I have a piece called Snippet Tiger Stare, which I'm looking forward to getting back to next year. Probably won't touch it again this year. Here we are. So from the last 2 weeks, I didn't work on this for the better part of one of the weeks because of being away. This is not the kind of piece I can take with me. It's just too complicated. But I did do quite a bit of stitching in this column, these columns. I'm trying to get to the point where I can take all of the gridding out, which I'm afraid to do because it does help me get oriented. And all of these colors are so similar. I can't just say, well, it's 3 stitches down from the gray because there's 4 or 5 different grays in that area. So I need the gridding, but I'm getting tired of it. But it's coming. I have 6,100 stitches left. And if I had nothing else to do, stitching-wise, I could finish it in a month or maybe 3 weeks. But I have a lot of other things going. Since the last time I saw you, I finished these main sections of this Jane Greenoff project, including putting the French knots in. And any of you who are watching this, who are doing this project, you can see that from a normal viewing distance, which I'm giving you kind of a normal viewing distance, the French knots look fine, even though they are far from perfect, but they're okay. I have one more panel still to do. I'm taking a little break from this. I'll probably pick it up, maybe not this coming week, but maybe the following week. But doing the French knots and the back stitching and all of the detail does really make a difference. And I'm just relying on the fact that flowers and insects are not perfect in the wild, and so therefore they don't have to be perfect right here. So one of the things I took to stitch in Canada when I was visiting Anne was Hannah Green. Because I had a lot of fill-in I could do down here, and because working on this border area, this border area, it's fairly straightforward. I mean, there's some counting to be done, but so I did get, it felt like nothing, but I got quite a bit done, and I also Zoomed the other day with Leslie and got some more done. So that lawn down there is coming. That cow, which needs to be filled in with blue, he'll get filled in. You see, there are 3 sheep that currently don't have anything to eat. I'll get to them. It'll happen. And then up here I started the border coming down, so This is just such a beautiful sampler. I've seen a few people have finished it. A few of you are tagging me in Instagram, which I love seeing what you're doing. And that this is fun to work on. And I say this every time. I have modified the original plan. I'm doing it in a slightly different order, so look sharp. Mainly because it wasn't really workable the way I planned it. But the main thing I worked on while I was in Canada were two little ornaments that I was stitching for Leslie for an event that she is holding in Leroy, New York on November 8th. And in the description field below, I give a link to how you can find out more about that event and how you can register. It's a one-day stitching retreat. It will include lunch and time for stitching and kits for 3 ornaments, as well as finishing tips and possibly finishing materials. I can't remember what she said to me. But the projects are designed for this particular fabric, which is Mirage, it's called, by Picture This Plus. And so this is the old St. Mark's Church that stood at the corner of St. Mark's Street and Church Street until I think it burned in the late 1800s, I'm gonna say. I might be wrong on the history. But that really is. And isn't that just a lovely setting of it, a wintry setting, and there's a star above, and it's as if the service is going on. The Christmas Eve service is going on in that little church, and you can see stars and snow falling, and very, very pretty. And that is, the drawings and photographs I've seen, this is a great representation of that church. And then the other ornament is this one, Joy to the World. Very nice little border, isn't it? And those musical notes actually represent the tune. I mean, there's no staff there, but you can see, if you can read music, you know that that's a good representation of the tune of that Christmas carol. As I say, this is Mirage. This is 14 count. I mean, it was such a pleasure to work on, and such a beautiful color, and a beautiful color for the nighttime scene. And the event you can choose between 14 and 16 count Ada. And Leslie has done a wonderful job with this. Yeah. And I haven't worked on 14 count Ada in a long time. And I think, why have I not? Because I enjoy it. And Ada is a very worthwhile fabric to stitch on. Somebody asked me recently, do I ever use Ada? I think I might have even said this in a recent video. I do. I definitely use it for full coverage pieces. And I have used it for some other sampler stitching, which at some point soon I will be showing you one of those pieces because I have a brainstorm to get it framed. But speaking of framing, up here you can see Jane Boyer, 1831, framed. This is the little sampler by the 7-year-old Jane Boyer that I charted as an adaptation and stitched. And the 2 years ago, last year, Leslie charted Jane Boyer's sampler that she did in 1834 when she was 10. And I stitched it, and it's a beautiful sampler. And it also, both of these samplers are in the collection of the Leroy Historical Society in Leroy, New York, which is where this Christmas stitching retreat is taking place, by the way. And the Jane Boyer has a lot of history in the town that Leslie researched, and I'm trying to finish up the chart, which will include some surprise elements, some ways for the stitcher to engage with the sampler in a similar way to what Jane, as a little girl, probably would have had the opportunity to engage with her sampler. And there'll be some explanation in the chart and some extra little items in there. And you can't see it there. You can't see it framed. So I'm going to put a picture here that I took. I first laced the sampler and I put it in the frame without any spacers or anything, and no glass in particular, in order to get some good pictures, which hopefully this is good. And then I finished the framing, which I have really no idea if I did it right, but yeah, I did it. It's there. And it is laced, in case Leslie wonders. I'm actually going to package it up soon and send it up to her when I finish the chart, or maybe sooner, because it should go in the sales area of this historical society along with the chart when it becomes ready, which that means I have to give that some time. And, you know, it is not perfect by a long shot in terms of the lacing, or the framing. The frame is very nice. By the way, the frame is from Frame Destination. I really like their product and the way they package everything, and the additional things that you need to frame needlework that they provide. It's easy to order. And I will definitely be getting at least 2 or 3 more things that I've already finished framed, and I'll probably get frames from them. Anyway, I'm happy about that. I'll put their contact information, or I'll put the name of the company in the description field. I usually don't put links. Lately, I have put a few links in that are places I think are fully trustworthy. And the reason I don't, this is a big parenthesis, is because a couple of years ago I had been putting links in to everything I talked about to make it as easy as possible for you to find more information. And one of the links got hacked, and YouTube gave me a black mark because I had linked to a site that was bad. Well, when I linked to it, it wasn't bad, and it was a reputable place, and it wasn't my fault that their site got hacked. But I realized that I can't let my reputation or my status as a legitimate YouTube producer in YouTube's database be damaged or at risk because other businesses don't have good web presence practices. And I might not know it, because I certainly wouldn't have suspected it about this particular business. And since then, their website has been fine, but, you know, once burned, twice shy. So at the moment, I'm very careful about which links I put in my description fields. So that is all I actually stitched on. And last week at the end of my video, I talked about my plans going forward, which mostly have to do with getting things ready for going to England, which those things still need to be done. I got back from Canada Monday night, and this is Friday, and I have done some small amounts of things that are related to that. But the thing I forgot to mention, because it hadn't arrived yet, is that I'm taking a class at the on Zoom with the Queen City Sampler Guild, the guild I belong to that's based in Cincinnati. And it's being given by Robin Sampler Bird. And it's some beautiful little projects that are related to our guild's 30th anniversary. So this is the Queen's Crowned Pincushion. You know, I should take that out. I'm sorry. I'll take this out of the package. And for this, we stitch the little pins, which each of them is a different specialty stitch. And we do the nun stitch around the edge and then cut them out. And all of the materials needed to make the pin cushion are here. You see there's some lace and some needles and some pins, and this is the crown pin to go in it. And then we also are learning to do this Queen's Crown scissor fob, which has a tiny little tomato attached to a scissor fob. And I decided to do the whole day. It's a 2.5 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon to make the different parts of it, to learn the techniques for the different parts. And our guild is really an excellent guild. They have a lot of great programs. And many of them are on Zoom, so that I, living 400 miles away, 8-hour drive, 7.5-hour drive away, can still participate. So anyway, I'm doing that. So I have a little bit of stitching to do. These tiny little flowers I have to stitch. Did I pull that out? Yeah. Well, here's yes, I did. I did look it over, but you can see the thread and there's some shiny thread. And I think this is DMC, so I chose the rose colorway instead of the blue, but I think it's really beautiful. And I think I believe that the instructions say what the DMC is for the blue colorway if I decided I wanted to do it a second time. And then there's this button and craft thread, which is used to make the tomato shaped properly. And there's crushed walnut shells and pre-stitched fabric and some lace to decorate it. And so I'm really looking forward to this. It was a beautifully presented kit before I opened it. And there is some pre-work. You have to stitch flower garden motifs, including an unstitched border. 3 of them I have to do. And there's some additional supplies, like, I don't know what, little things I have to find, which will be easy. That class is a week from tomorrow. So I have to make that a priority between now and next Friday, between now and next Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. That's perfect. Yeah, that's good. The other thing I've been doing is when I was in Canada with Anne, I'll tell you a little bit about that trip now. She loves to knit. She's knitted several spectacular things recently, some spectacular shawls. Kevin West is a knitting designer, and she's knitted a few things by him. We went to the yarn store, and I had told her in advance, I said, do not let me buy any yarn. I must not buy yarn because I have so much yarn. It's crazy. And so I went to the yarn store, and there is a cross-stitch section at the yarn store, but I also have a lot of cross-stitch. So and the way it was laid out, it wasn't, you had to sort of know what you were looking for in order to find something, at least from my standpoint. But they did have tatting shuttles and tatting thread. And so I bought a little ball of 80 weight. I'm just going to put this in front of my shirt because it would be hard for you to see it otherwise. This is DMC color ecru, and it's the same. DMC colors are the same. So there's tatting thread and pearl cotton, different weights in 321, for example, which is the same red as their floss, 321. But this is the hens and chicks. I'll put it right side up. Hens and chicks pattern, which was one I remembered I could do from memory. And it also was one that didn't require me to work with a shuttle and a ball, but I wanted something that I could just do while sitting around chatting. And it turns out I can do this, and I could do it in dim light. And that shouldn't really surprise me, because Granny Fay, Byron's grandmother, who taught me to tat, was, when I met her, she was probably 75-ish, I would say. And she needed cataract surgery, hadn't had cataract surgery, and she had arthritis, and she managed to quilt and tat like crazy. I mean, tons of quilting and tatting. Now, her work wasn't pristine at that time, especially her hand quilting. It wasn't exactly straight, and her stitches were not exactly even, but she did it with her own arthritic hands, and she did it, a lot of it. She really enjoyed it and did it. She just did it. You know, she didn't sit around and watch TV. She didn't watch Flosstubes. She didn't do Sudoku. This is what she did. And so she taught me to tat, and this was one of the first things she taught me. So anyway, I could do this in dim light, and I could do it, I mean, I don't have much arthritis in my hand, so that's not an issue. But I have a plan for this little stretch of this. What do I have now? About 15 inches. So I'll make it a couple feet, 24 inches or so long, and it'll have a destination. So I worked on that. And by the way, speaking of Granny, so I don't know if you can see that this shuttle has a ridged area. I don't know if I can get the light to show you that. It's, you know, there's some ridge there so that when you grip it, it's not slippery. You have something to grip. And on Granny's shuttles, this was all worn smooth. She used them so much. She wore down the plastic. So anyway, I worked on that. And Ann and I played Dominion. We played Dominion using the online interface, which is so much more convenient than cards. But cards are so nice. But you know, if you're playing Dominion on your tablet or on your computer, then you don't have to clear the table when it's time to eat. And so we played on that system and we enjoyed it. And you know, I have all the Dominion cards except for one set. Makes me wonder if I should get rid of them. I don't know. I just can't, I don't feel good about that. We went out looking for birds to feed. There's some trails in the area, and I was going to say near where she lives. Well, she's moved, so it's not as near as it used to be. But some trails where you can take a nice little walk, and there are places where you can hear the birds singing, chickadees and nuthatches mainly. And if you have sunflower seed with you, you can hold your hand out and they will light on your hand and take a sunflower seed. And there was one place that we were able to do that with. A nuthatch came several times, and so I'm going to stick a little video in here. I'm sorry it's blurry. I was bracing my phone on my shoulder and holding my hand out, and the distance was not right for it to be in focus, and I couldn't see. So it's pretty good. I mean, it gives you the idea of what I was doing. And really, my hand was like this away from me. It was very, very close. The bird is, and he would look at me. You know, he'd sit down on the tip of my finger and he'd give me a little look, and then he'd get a seed, and then he would fly off. And then you would hear him coming closer, and you would see him going closer and closer, and then he would come back and get another seed. And normally chickadees also do this, but we didn't see any chickadees. And we also didn't have the black oil sunflower seeds. We had the regular ones. Chickadees, possibly. There was a place we heard chickadees. Maybe they would have come if it had been the black oil sunflower seeds. I don't know. I don't know how they could tell, but anyway. There's a couple bags of seeds in the backseat of your car, and don't forget. Because we didn't give them all. There weren't enough birds. But the main thing, there was a couple of really interesting things about the trip this time. First of all, we went down to 2 different parks that are along the river, 2 different evenings. And the sunsets were unbelievable. So colorful, and they were colorful and brilliant even though there were not clouds particularly. Often a sunset is beautiful because of the clouds being different colors, but in this case it was the sky itself. Primarily it was the sky. And I think it was probably affected by the fact that there are wildfires farther west, and the air has some particulates in it that are making sunsets more brilliant. That certainly was true in North Carolina a couple of years ago when there was a lot of wildfires in the mountain area and in Tennessee and northern Georgia. And you know, that's what one of the things that happens when there are wildfires is people downwind of it. Downwind? Is that the term? Get beautiful sunsets. But the other interesting thing is at Britannia Park, I believe that's what it's called, Britannia, which is on the river, we realized that the Ironman Canada or Ironman Ottawa swimming was going to take place. And we were there, it was either Thursday evening, the day I arrived, or Friday. So a couple of days before the event, which took place on Sunday. And we could see the whole fenced-in setup where all the racks were for where the bicycles were going to be. Because in Ironman, you swim, get out of the water, you run to your bicycle, and you get on your bicycle. But you take your wetsuit off first because the water's cold. Then you ride a bicycle, and then you get to the end of the bicycle area, and you change your shoes into your running shoes, and you run. And an Ironman, this particular one, I think this is typical. These are typical distances. The swim was 3.8 kilometers, which I believe is 2 miles. The bike ride was 180 kilometers, which I think is, I don't know, somebody can do the math. Close to 100 miles. Maybe really 100-ish miles. And then the run was a 26-mile. It was a marathon. So when I was arriving in the city, when I was at the airport in the line for customs, 2 people were conversing with each other near me. They had just met in line, so they had just arrived on my flight. I came through Newark, and they were talking about the fact that they were both in town for this Ironman, and they didn't know each other before. They just happened to meet on the flight. So I overheard this conversation about Ironman, and Ironman is on Sunday. And when I got to Anne's place and we were talking about what was going on, she said, oh, there are a lot of road closures on Sunday because of something. I said, oh yes, I think it must be the Ironman event. And then on my flight home, there were people in the airport near where I was sitting, as well as on the plane that I was flying out of Ottawa on, who had competed. They were clearly competitors. They had all kinds of Ironman branded gear and, you know, the stuff that a competitor would get at a big event like that, the special shirt and the special baseball cap and so forth. So it was pretty interesting. It was very interesting to see where that bike area was. I mean, I took a picture. I'll stick it in here. It's not that great a picture in terms of, you can't really see. But the picture will remind me of what it looks like. So if I ever have the chance to watch anything about an Ironman on television in the future, I'll know what I'm looking at. Apparently, close to 3,000 people competed in this, and it was billed as anybody could compete. And there were, I think, well, in order to, it was hard to find out some information. I was surprised at how hard it was to find information as if I were a competitor, but I never registered for it. You know, I didn't pay my entry fee, so I might have been able to find out more if I had really been a competitor, but it was not just a triathlon. You couldn't just swim half a mile and then bike 15 miles and then run a 5K. It wasn't that kind of thing. I think if you were in it, you were in the whole thing. But it was very interesting. We were able to find a few YouTube clips of some of the finishers. The fastest male finisher was 8 hours and 40 minutes. and the fastest female finisher was 9 hours and 40 minutes or something, 36 minutes. So it was quite, and they were both from the Ottawa area, from Canada at least. I can't remember where the woman was from. But there were people from around the world competing. And it's really interesting. I'm sure that there's an Ironman circuit and people compete in multiple Ironman competitions per year the way people do bike rides and marathons and things like that. So that was really interesting. So next week I'll be back with the usual. You know, I was going to talk for a moment about some games. Will you bear with me for 5 minutes? Let me just bring these over. So I'll tell you what occasioned this is I was thinking about variety show and that I don't know what topics would be of interest to you all, variety show wise. And of course, in the videos I watch, I think the reason I watch them is because the things that the person talks about are of interest to them, even if they might not be right up my alley. So I'm hoping that you will indulge me a little bit in this. And I wanted to talk about a particular game designer that I pretty much will at least look closely at anything he designs. It's a German game designer, and the first place we encountered him was in this game, which is a cooperative game based on the Lord of the Rings storyline. And it's by Rainer Knizia. Here's his name. And it is a very good cooperative game with a theme. It's an excellent thematic game. It may not be the very best cooperative game in the world, but if you want to be a hobbit and be trying to take the ring to Mount Doom, you will get the feel of it in that game. He also wrote a game called The Lord of the Rings: A Confrontation, which I do have, but I could not reach it, so I didn't bring it out. But that is another game themed on Lord of the Rings, and it's a 2-player game. And it gets very good reviews, as I recall, but it wasn't a game that I loved. I liked the cooperative game aspect of that better than a competitive game based on Lord of the Rings. Now, speaking of a competitive game, this is called Battle Line, and it is a card game, and you can tell that inside the box are things that are more than just cards. There are little markers that let you mark off which columns of fighting you're engaging in. Little wooden, oops. No, I'm glad I don't have a dog or a baby. You know, little wooden pieces. But I'll pick that up in a minute. But this is quite a good strategic game. It's sort of a pure strategy game. It's called Battle Line. It has a medieval theme to it, but you could play it with regular playing cards. It wouldn't be as fun. Again, by Rainer Knizia. And a game that I'm pretty sure I mentioned on this channel before as a very good 2-player game is called Lost Cities, and this is one that he wrote, he created, invented. What do you do to a game? You design it? You develop it? I don't know what the verb is. I don't know what game people do. But anyway, it's his game. I'll do that. And this is a game where you are building sequences of cards from low to high. And the more cards that you can put in your lineup, the more points you score for that color. And there's some bonuses that you can do, but of course you're taking a risk. If you don't score a certain minimum number of cards in that column, then your points that you have amassed in that column are negative, so that's a problem. And this game, Celtus, when Byron and I were in Germany, we went to a bookstore, and you know, the odd thing was all the books were in German, and so were the games. So this is a game that is the instructions in here are in German, But I was able to figure out enough by looking at the back of the game that it is basically lost cities, but you could go either direction. It doesn't have to be low to high in your numbers. You can choose to go low to high or high to low. Whoops. Now the instructions in here are in German, and when we had the game, we asked the German student who was staying with us to teach us to play the game. And so we learned it sort of at that point, but then since then I've looked up the rules in English because I'm not going to try to remember what German things mean. Now here's another game, Ingenious, and the subtitle is 3 Clever Games for 2 to 4 Brains by Rainer Knizia. And this game ought to be a good game. It ought to be a better game than it actually is. And it has a lot of components. It has a scoring board, and it has little pegs, and it has dice and cards, and these little hexagon things with different shapes on them. And it may be that we just haven't played it enough to get to understand it, but it isn't as good a game as I wished it were. There are 3 different games in there. I should probably enlist some of my game-playing friends to play that with me and to give it a better evaluation. Now, Rainer Knizia has authored many games. If you go to his Wikipedia article, you will see that there's a game that he's had published at least one a year, I would say, for the past 25 years. He is my age. He's 67. It's interesting and when I look at the list of games, there are a lot of them that I have heard of and never played. There are some that I have played that I don't own. Someone else owned them when I played them. There are some, as I look at the reviews, I think, yeah, I probably would like to get that game and try it. But at this point in my life, I find I'm not playing complicated strategy games as much. Now, I think I could get into it if I had the complicated strategy game cohort that was right at hand, that was interested in playing. But Byron's game that he would be interested in playing, if only I would do it, is chess, which is an excellent game, of course. No, you can't argue with that. So maybe I'll play a little chess with Byron. After all, we've been married 43 years. We should play chess every now and then. Okay, thank you for watching. Welcome to any new viewers that maybe have found me. If you're new, I am kind of curious or if you're new-ish, say within the past 6 months, I'd be curious as to how you found me, how you found this channel. Just curious. You can either leave a comment or you can email me. I have an email address in the description field. You can direct message me on Instagram. I think I know how that works. But in any case, I hope you'll tune in again next week to see more. Look back at my previous videos. Video number 139 was in late December, and that was the initial one where I talked about Hannah Green, if you want to see what that stitch along is all about. And I look forward to seeing you again next week. Thanks so much, friends, and many blessings.